The Gesture and the Stranger's Language, puppeteered by Nate, Christian M, guest puppeteered by Davey, and puppet by Joy. The King Maharaja was the king of Bengal during the Middle Ages. It was customary for kings in those days to hire lots of talented people. Every king had his own court poets, artists, singers, town planners, architects, and what have you. He also had plenty of ministers to advise him on different matters. Every king also had a court jester. The jester was a very important person for his ability to make people laugh and feel happy. The king had a lot of serious work to do, lots of difficult problems to solve. It meant a lot of tension, so he needed someone to make his tension lighter with jokes. The jester also helped with unexpected advice when no one else could come up with a solution. Gopal was the king's favorite jester. A barber by profession, he had razor-sharp wit and could make the best of any situation. He was bright and clever and had a tremendous presence of mind. Most importantly, he had a kind heart as well. He was always ready to help anyone, not just the king. The king then had a new visitor. The visitor could recite all the scriptures in perfect Sanskrit. He could speak chaste Arabic and Persian. He spoke to the people in perfect Bengali with all its varied dialects, and he could hold forth in half a dozen other languages. But no one knew which part of the country the stranger came from. It was a mystery not just to the king, but to everyone else as well. "Where are you from?" said the king to the stranger. "Why, I'm from this country, your majesty," replied the scholar. "I belong right here with the rest of you." "But what is your language?" said the king. "The language of this land," said the stranger. "Oh, I know, but who is your father?" "You are my father, sire. The king is the father of all his subjects." "What about your family?" "I'm part of yours," came the prompt answer. It was useless to question the stranger. He always came up with vague, poetic answers, which sounded so good that it was quite impossible to pin him down. Gradually, people got to call him Masai, a respectful term of address in Bengali, because he seemed to know so much. He had ready answers for everything. One day, the king called Gopal forth, his favorite jester. To Gopal, the jester, he said, "I wish I knew who this stranger is and where he comes from. I feel really uncomfortable when I realize I don't even know what his language is. A king ought to know every detail about his subjects." "I could find out what his language is," said Gopal the jester. "Then please do," said the king. "Once I know that, I can easily find out the rest about him." Gopal followed Pandit Masai the stranger closely for the next few days. The king retired to his castle. Gopal took note of all that the stranger did. The stranger lived by himself and did his own cooking and shopping. The jester landed up there late one evening, well before Pandit Masai the stranger arrived from the market. He hid all the lamps and lanterns in the stranger's house. By the time the stranger reached home, everything was in complete darkness. He opened the door and hunted for the lamp. It seemed to have vanished. So had the lanterns and the matches. The stranger could not imagine what had happened. He had left everything in place as usual before he left for the market. Who could have possibly taken them? He felt really annoyed. As the stranger fumbled all around his house, he ran into the jester, who promptly trod on his toes. "Ouch! You blasted fool!" he cried in Oriya. "Are you blind?" Gopal chuckled, "Ha ha ha ha," and ran out in the darkness before the stranger could discover who he was. He made straight for the palace and asked to see the king. The king met with the jester while the stranger recovered at home from his hurt toes. "At this time," asked the royal guard in surprise, "His Majesty must be resting, although it is not yet time for him to retire for the night." Gopal said, "Tell the king I'm here. I have an important message to convey." The king was curious about Gopal's message and sent for him at once. "Sire, I have the solution to your problem," said Gopal. "Do you mean about the stranger?" said the king eagerly. "Have you managed to discover what his language is and which part of the country he belongs to?" "Yes, I have found out both. He is from Orissa and his language is Oriya," said the jester triumphantly. "But how could you possibly be sure?" said the king. "The man speaks so many languages. His language could be any one of them." "But I am sure, your majesty," said Gopal. "You can ask him tomorrow." "But tell me, what makes you so sure?" asked the king. "Sire, when a person is off guard, the language that springs instinctively to his lips is his own mother tongue," said Gopal. "The stranger was not expecting anyone to be in his house at that time, so when I suddenly stepped on his toes out of the blue, he automatically exclaimed in Oriya and not in any other language." The next day, when the king saw the stranger in the courtyard, he said, "Well, stranger Masai, so you are from Orissa? Your language is Oriya, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," said the Masai with a broad smile. "I wonder how you found out." "Why didn't you tell me at the outset?" said the king. "Oh, I enjoyed myself when everyone tried to guess my real identity," said the Masai. "Please tell me how you managed to discover it." "Well, actually, it was my court jester who did," the king said, smiling. "Gopal, you mean that jester of yours?" said the stranger in surprise. "He is a barber, isn't he?" "Yes, he is, but even barbers can be intelligent, you know," said Gopal, laughing. "Especially when it comes to plain, common sense." The end. Wave your puppets around, guys. Yay!